You are now listening to the sound of my block. Listen to the sound of my block. Just pause and listen to it, guys.
Just would you guys please let Nathan listen to the sound of his block?
I know we were having a romantic moment, but I need to listen to the sound of my block here, okay?
Good grief. People are so impatient.
People are impatient. They need to smell those syringes, see the litter, inhale some tobacco. They need to smell the block. First of many comments I'll make that could be deemed as racist against somebody or other, I'm sure. Anyway, let's talk about In the Heights, the Broadway musical sensation, now made into a movie by people, John Chow, or however you say his name, the Crazy Rich Asians guy, a movie that I enjoyed. Thing is, he doesn't...
A movie I still haven't seen.
It's fun.
Amanda's wanted to watch it.
It's fun. You guys would both enjoy it. It's a good movie to watch with your woman, as I recall, anyway. It's got a lot of Crazy Rich Asians in it.
Oh, Megan liked it. She's seen it. I haven't seen it.
Well, I was curious what Megan's reaction was. The fact that Megan likes it, I think, only lends credibility to the idea that it's a good movie. Because if there's one person in a position not to like a movie called Crazy Rich Asians, it's somebody who's spent some time in Asia and knows how much it's reflecting something and what it's reflecting, which I don't really know. Besides, I know that there are some Crazy Rich Asians. That much I understand.
Yeah. And
this movie's about them. They're crazy. They're rich. They're Asian.
Not the movie that we're here to review today.
No. But I think I just like to point out that I'm not sure that John Chow really understands that there's a difference between the culture of Crazy Rich Asians and crazy poor Latinos. He kind of tends to film them. Anyway, we'll get into it. Has everyone sufficiently smelled the block?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, let's call it good.
All right. We'll call it good for now. If we need to double back and absorb block information a little bit later in the podcast, we can, because I feel like that's something that you have to come back to. But let me introduce this first. My name is Nathan. I'm your humble and obedient host. We've got Ben Sulzer there, child of the streets, if ever there was one.
Right.
And we've got a third gentleman. He's just working to get out of here, make it to his island. You can tell us who he is, Ben, and more about him.
Right. Trying to get back home to Island Newburgh.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best... the happiest memories of his life.
Right.
Pastor Jake Menzel.
Boy, did you say it.
Isla de Newburgh. All right, guys. In the Heights. It's a musical. It didn't make any money. Everybody was shocked by that. It was supposed to make lots of money. It was supposed to bring theaters roaring back to life. Instead, people were way more interested in The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It.
I didn't even know. I just knew that it was In the Heights is like a critical darling, right?
It is a super critical darling, and it was a big, fun, splashy, exuberant musical, and it was supposed to be one of the things that was going to bring theaters out of COVID and back to life. But instead, A Quiet Place 2 is really the thing that's done that, and also, secondarily, The Conjuring. So, horror movies always sell. Big, exuberant, happy musicals are pretty hit and miss.
What about Cruella? That's what I want to know.
I think Cruella's done all right. But again, people were really hungry to be terrified. They wanted their quiet place.
Again, what about Cruella?
Well, again, people were hungry to be terrified, not to watch some campy piece of Disney IP exploitation. I think Cruella did all right.
With Emma Stone and Emma Thompson.
Hey, I would watch Cruella. I'll probably watch it sometime with my wife. I think it's probably fun in its dumb little way. It's probably a complete waste of time, but me and my wife can hold hands on the couch or something like that and have something pleasant playing in the background with Emma Stone camping it up and that other Emma Thompson camping it up. You're going to get some entertainment value out of that, I would think. Plus, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that Dalmatians murdered her mother, which made me want to see the movie.
No way.
I think Dalmatians accidentally knocked her mom off a cliff or something.
All right. So if you're gonna give Cruella de Vil a tragic backstory that makes her sympathetic and makes sense of the fact that she's an evil puppy murdering monster, then you might as well.
I think you could do a whole lot worse than Dalmatians knocked her mom off of a cliff.
Amazing.
And that was what made me excited to see the movie. Like, oh, this is a piece of garbage. Okay, I can get behind that as long as we all understand what we're doing.
Have you seen the reviews going around social media of, guys, that's so shocking. You know, her last name is Devil and she lives at Hell Hall. And it's like,
oh yeah, and she claims that she wants to be like associated with the devil, and some Christian lady was like, "This is not my Disney."
Right?
And,
yeah.
Well, that was kind of silly. Yes, I have seen those reviews.
I haven't.
Well, that's another movie we're not here to discuss. We're here to discuss The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do. What do you guys think about the larger Conjuring verse? You're Annabelle. You're the Nun. You're La Morta Day. They have a whole bunch of spin-offs of The Conjuring. And I think they mostly involve people walking through dark, underlit places and then things going, ah! Exciting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, as far as The Conjuring goes, I'm committed to never seeing any of them.
We're so excited to talk about In the Heights. In the Heights. That's not even the melody. All right. We watched In the Heights. What's you guys' history with Lin-Manuel Miranda and all that? I guess that's an important factor. We all Hamilton fans.
Yeah, I'm a Hamilton fan.
Yep, definitely.
A Familton. There surely is. There's a name for Hamilton fans.
I don't know.
We're all Hamel heads.
That's probably it, yeah.
Right. Poor Mark Hamill.
As soon as it has nothing to do with Mark Hamill.
I know. We're also Hamill heads. We're Mark Hamill heads, unlike Ryan Johnson. True. Sick burn there. Okay. So we all liked Hamilton. Yeah, we all liked Hamilton. I think it's safe to say, not just me, but
Alex Vander Hamilton's.
Alex. That's what
Alex Vander Hamilton's.
Did you just make that up, or is that what the internet says?
I don't know that it's really around, but it popped up on Quora.
Okay, well, once again, we live in a wonderful world, and I'm glad that the fans are called Alexander Fan.
Alex Vander.
Alex Vander.
Alex Vander.
All right.
Alex Vander Hamilton. That's great. I'm happy. Good job, Alexander Familtons. Or, yeah, whatever they are.
Nathan can't get it right.
Can't even get it right. Yeah, we all liked Hamilton. I would have loved to hate on Hamilton because I hate things that are popular and I'm grumpy and everybody, that's at least the stereotype of me. But I was the first person of the three of us to embrace Hamilton because my wife was listening to the soundtrack and I was just like, okay, well, you can't deny that this is genius. And then, we all watched Hamilton and it was a fine old time at the TV screen. None of us actually went to see for Hamilton because we didn't want to get a second mortgage or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right.
No, but as soon as Disney put it on Disney Plus, we watched it.
Yep. So that's our...
And then I listened to the soundtrack.
And then you listen to the which is arguably the way to do it. Also arguably not the way to do it because you probably got a lot less out of watching it the first time. But
I don't know. Didn't feel like I missed anything.
I guess I just didn't remember Alexander's Hamilton's story that well. So it was nice to have listened to the album a couple times to have some handles because there's so much information coming at you so quickly. Anyway, we're not here to litigate Hamilton.
I already done that. And you can discover that I already knew Hamilton's story.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty well.
So Jake was going to be a hater because he was like, they're not going to get the story correct. But then they basically kind of do, minus the whole casting.
I mean, some
people of color and totally changing a bunch of stuff.
But they got a lot of the rest of the story.
They included the adultery and a lot of Alexander Hamilton's character flaws and all that stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, we all like Hamilton because we live on a little planet called Earth. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
We like objectively good things.
And Hamilton is just quite good, and it reaches across the aisle.
It's a masterpiece.
It deserves all of its phenomena.
I mean, there's a reason we came away from that thinking, all right, do we have a new like Shakespeare style dude on our hands? Like, this was super special. What's he going to do next?
Right.
Is this a one-hit wonder, or is this,
And I would say that the jury is still out on that. I mean, In the Heights came first, so you can't, and it's an adolescent thing, really. You can feel him like gearing up for Hamilton and getting a lot of his ducks in the row here.
And being willing to take the success of In the Heights and just completely cannibalize it and ruin it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Which, I think my take is that Hamilton ruins In the Heights.
Because
it does so many of the same things better.
Yeah, it does. It's like he had a good formula and he had some good patterns and he found a lot of things that worked when he did In the Heights and really resonated with people. And then he just took a lot of those things and took them to the next level and didn't even bother differentiating a whole lot in terms of character and...
Which I think is fine, by the way. I don't mind that, but it does ruin In the Heights.
Yeah. I mean,
if he wants to,
it got us Hamilton.
If you're going to cannibalize anybody, you might as well cannibalize yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
But
sure.
I think that's fair for an artist to do. I think it's entirely fair. But
well, it's like kind of thing that we will probably do on our next story show.
Mm-hmm.
Our next story show, after we finish the Ville, we'll use the same troupe of actors.
Mm-hmm.
And that means a lot of our characters are just going to be written to be... They're going to be a lot of echoes of characters from the Ville in the new story show.
It's like poetry, as George Lucas famously said when he was writing the prequels. So before we get...
You have to write to people's strengths and to their weaknesses. And we spent 5 years or 4 years or however long learning how to do that with the Ville. And our troupe isn't going to change. And
our sensibilities aren't going to change. We like certain kinds of things.
And that was true of... Miranda was working with the troupe by and large.
Yeah. It's just, I guess the difference is how much is just going to be transposition of what you did before.
Right. Yeah, he didn't. Well, before we go too deep into our takes, does anybody else have any other Hamilton and or Miranda baggage? I think we all hated that Mary Poppins thing, which wasn't really his fault, but
it's not he's just a performer in that.
Yeah, it doesn't play to his strengths though, and it was a mistake for him to take the part.
Yeah. I guess he did Moana, but I haven't seen it. So
I haven't seen it either, but I've heard the soundtrack a million times, and it's great. I mean, Moana is the closest thing I think to it's the old Hamilton magic. Not that he, I think, even did every song in it, but the songs that he did are great.
Huh.
And what else has he done? I know he's done other things.
Those are the big things.
I
mean, he's got other things coming out. He's got Little Mermaid, and he's got some other fun things.
Yeah. I think Mary Poppins is the big black spot. Well, maybe In the Heights is, but we'll talk about that. The Mary Poppins is the big black spot because I don't think his actual strength is as a performer. Even in the recorded for all posterity version of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's like, he's fine, but he's not the really dynamic performer in that.
No,
but although I think that I suspect he would have done a better job than Anthony Ramos in the lead, except for having been fully aged out of the part and it really needing somebody who's cute and charming. Or who's not charming, but cute.
I think he gets by in Hamilton by underplaying, and he brings something under the surface to what he's doing that I liked a lot.
Yes, I did too. And I think if Anthony Ramos had more of whatever it is that makes Lin-Manuel Miranda tick, it would have helped.
A little bit of that.
Some of the anger and the charisma and
the... Je ne sais quoi. Yeah. Ramos
he feels like such
flat.
He feels like such a dunderhead in the Heights, and it's like Lin-Manuel Miranda. At least he's always thinking. There's always something going on. He would never see him as much of a beta in front of his lady.
That's right.
As Ramos, I think, accidentally did. I don't think the movie was actually trying to tell us he was a beta, but
it sure did, though.
I mean, it did.
That's because Ramos is a beta, and that's why he gets cast as the child character in Hamilton. And why you feel like the actual child character in the Heights was written for Ramos or somebody like him, and not the lead role.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, he is charismatic in his way. I don't mind necessarily him being a movie star in the right role or
charismatic,
but not as a lead.
Yeah,
not as the romantic.
If he was playing the Sonny character, for example, he would have been great at that.
Yeah,
he could be a great sidekick.
He was, and it just feels like Sonny was written for Ramos or somebody like him, the way that Philip was written for Ramos or somebody like him.
Well, I guess we've already sort of given some of our thoughts away. But Jake, is there anything else to your hot take on? I was going to say Hamilton on In the Heights. Like, you think it's subpar to Hamilton? You think Hamilton cannibalized a lot of what was best about it and left it not a very exciting thing and artifact in and of itself?
Yeah, I think it's sweet It's not special the way that Hamilton's special. The Hamilton builds off its best qualities and does a lot of those things better and adds some magic of its own that this one's lacking, and tries to make up for in cinematography and choreography, which is really great and beautiful in its own way. If very Pepsi commercial, as you said, not trying to steal your take on that, but that's a really strong take, I think.
There's a specific Pepsi commercial that maybe we all remember. It has Britney Spears and Bob Dole.
Well, as soon as you said that, that's what
I know. That's
I actually don't remember it.
And they all have the exact level of sweat and the exact level of sheen. There's no reason to pull it up unless you want to see Britney Spears flaunting her stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the choreography, the cutting style, everything about this is like early aughties sort of Pepsi commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, it's done well enough. I don't know, Ben. What's your?
I mean, Coke actually in their commercials, by comparison, gives you a little bit more sweat,
a little bit more sweat, a little more grit, right? Yeah. I wish this was done more of a Coke commercial. If everybody had more sweat, this movie that would go a long way towards making this movie work. I think
make it feel just a little bit more real,
a little more lived in. Yeah,
yeah, and it's a flashy musical. It doesn't. Nobody demands our musicals to feel too real and too lived in, right? Because they're musicals, but
this one didn't straddle that line, though.
Yeah. You've got to give a little more.
I mean, but it is beautiful. It is colorful, and the choreography is really cool. But that's where I just felt like if there were more sweat in the songs, there's just something that I could walk away with and want to hum.
Yeah.
That's part of it too.
I can understand why this played so well and won so many Tonys on Broadway. It makes sense if you're actually
especially
sitting there.
If you haven't seen if Hamilton doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Right. Like this as a proof of concept for
just that whole style.
That whole style of musical is really spectacular and cool.
Well, and I think on Broadway, so many of the things you wouldn't have to worry about literal sweat. You as an audience could just assume that they were right. Even though they were representing it very colorfully, you could assume this is
enough.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that, but you could just assume symbolically this, like, I know what they're trying to do is tell me a story of the streets, and so I'm imagining there's cigarettes on the ground. I'm imagining there's the smell.
There's a whole lot of gaps that you have to fill.
Right.
That you have to be more creative, or you don't have to be as creative about, or whatever in a stage production. I do think that there would be some real value in comparing this to a stage production, the way that we got to see Hamilton as a stage production, and how seeing some movie maker's vision of Hamilton would have changed the way that.
Well, I think there's a good case to be made that Hamilton won't work actually for some of the same reasons, because having black guys literally in the Revolutionary War rapping is much different than having a black guy who stands for the idea of something, rapping about the idea of something, and the audience is filling it in with their imagination.
It breaks the reality too much, or takes you out of it maybe too much.
Right.
Yeah. So the stage
and actually works less to do what Miranda's trying to do with race and in the musical in and of itself.
Yeah, because suddenly we're just saying, it was black guys back then, and that doesn't make any sense. Like,
no, it's supposed to be symbolic.
Right. It's supposed to be symbolic. It's supposed to be abstract and metaphorical to some, and that's great. But
who are today's Hamiltons and Washingtons? Who are today's upstart immigrants?
Right. And I think there's a way to make a movie play symbolically or abstractly. There's a way to have a movie be represented, like the movies of Wes Anderson. Are we supposed to really believe that that's how the world works? No, it's artifice, and we know it. West Side Story is a great counterpoint to this. It's artifice and it knows it, but it's also indicating how brutal things are while everyone's just dancing around and doing choreography. It's like,
well, and then Chow, I'm not sure who or how.
Cho. I think it's Cho.
But I mean, they try to they insert animation. He inserts animation here and there. He does now we're walking sideways and defying gravity here and there. Like, he does things that are, you have to assume meant to make you feel like you're in a magical, symbolical world that's just a representation, but it doesn't.
It never symbolizes anything that makes sense or makes emotional sense, I don't think.
No, it feels like it's just breaking the reality that he's already established, where it's just like, that's cool, but it doesn't feel like it makes sense. It's of a piece of the world that you've introduced me to. Well,
I'll give you what I think is a great counterpoint. Let me compliment my own point before I make it. Moulin Rouge, completely artificial, and I'm not recommending the movie, but it's completely artificial, and yet it effectively says, here is a debauched place full of prostitutes, full of people taking advantage of people, full of bohemian artists who are starving, and it's never for a moment does it look like anything but a big splashy MTV kind of thing. But it gives you those ideas, like you understand what the world's supposed to be. This movie's either too literal or not symbolic enough, or I don't know. They could go either direction. They could put some warts on people's faces, have some broken teeth, have some cigarettes. That's one direction you could go. Or you could go more into abstraction one way or another and still tell and make it work.
Yeah, and we need more dancing on the side of buildings and animations popping in and out of our reality here.
Right.
For that to work.
But either way, they didn't actually make it work. Like they're not telling the story that I think that they intend to tell. And I could forgive Lin-Manuel Miranda if he was 20 or whatever, however old he was when he came up with that level of maturity. But the fact that he wasn't able to see it or didn't want to see it, didn't just look at this movie and say, oh, wait a second, I didn't actually tell the story that I meant to. I think that's pretty unforgivable. But I'll get to more of that, I guess. Ben, what's your big hot take on this movie?
You already said most of my thoughts. So that's it. It's just not abstract enough. It's not gritty enough. It's not anything enough. It's just it's colorful, but not in a memorable way. There aren't characters who stand out. There aren't numbers that stand out. There's no music that's stuck in your head afterwards. There's just kind of like, yeah, it was a big colorful thing that happened. That's it. That's all that you're left with.
The only thing that to me is like, I would make me want to come back to it is 96,000 scene number, not because of the music, but because of the pool.
Yeah, it's
choreography.
Fun. It's fun.
Oh, that was super
big,
interesting,
Berkeley kind of, yeah,
really fun. Well,
it's also the most overtly political number, and I think that does give it some interest. Whether you agree with the politics or not, at least there's an edge. Yeah. And so much of this is just kind of toothless. Yeah, I'll watch that number again on YouTube probably. Although it does have the trouble that a lot of this movie has of if you don't want to see a bunch of people in various stages of undress doing questionable things with their body. Although I will say this movie had less of that than I sort of expected it to.
It had less than I expected. For as quote unquote sex positive as the script in the storyline is, it's just very unashamedly sexual here and there. It's really neutered. It's really lacking in anything of actual. It's really lacking any sexual potency anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's really nothing.
And I think that's on purpose. I think that's their way of keeping it "quote unquote" family friendly, which to be clear,
and quote unquote, well, and advancing an agenda where it's just normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more like the porn version of things in that sense than the real life love version of things. It's just like images of flesh. It's like you said, it's not as bad as it could be. But
well, again, you compare it to 90s MTV, and it's like they're not being that salacious in the way that they emphasize certain body parts of women and things like that. Like we used to be much more overtly sexual. Now we're going to have people wear even nastier outfits, and like the whole thing will have the sheen of sex.
Yeah,
even
but
more.
None of the potency.
But none of the potency. Yeah.
So there's nothing like you can look back on it. I look back on it objectively, or even I listened to the soundtrack, or at least parts of it, over the last couple of days because I watched it, a week ago when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to be fresh or whatever. But it was like, oh yeah, that lyric. Oh yeah, that lyric. Oh yeah, that lyric. and you start to look at things objectively, or the number of times that one lady actually fondles her own breasts or something like that. You just say that out loud. But going through the movie itself, I was like, I can't think of anything that was even remotely actually sexually provocative or stimulating.
Right, which is not to say
and it wasn't that it's...
You wouldn't show this to your 13-year-old
I'm not showing it to my kids,
anything.
and it's not... But I don't think that's a statement on desensitization so much as just like there's something in how they portrayed things that was just like blasé.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think you're right.
It also, I don't know. Is it partly that it feels like just exposing yourself sexually or whatever, or making your sexual potency known, which is like a lot of what the older women in the beauty shop, they're doing that all the time.
Yes.
Emphasizing their breasts and the way that they dance.
Right. That's what I was. Yeah.
They're the ones that get like close-ups of their butts and stuff like that.
I know.
Which you expect the whole movie to have that with all the younger ladies, but they very much stay away from that. Like, we would never exploit our young ladies this way, but
yeah, not nearly as much. But what was I gonna? Oh, I kind of lost my thought here. It's something to do with normalizing the idea that, like, of course, sex is everywhere. You can assume that we have sex with lots of different men in the community. Almost, it has that flavor to me of like, so who cares? This person's sleeping with that person. You're sleeping with that person. Hope it works out.
Yeah. It's all sexual and it's all desexed. It's like, it's the weird perversity of the age that we live in. There's nothing that's wholesome about it, although it very much wants to pretend that it's wholesome. But it's also, it doesn't want to be overtly depraved in a way that you'd almost respect. I don't want to say you would actually respect it, but, you know, those old MTV music videos, like, they knew, like, all right, this is what men are interested in, and they'll give us more money if we should, you know, it's just like, it was very transactional and very wicked.
Yeah, well, 2.5 minutes, they push all the buttons.
Right.
And 2.5 hours, and we have studiously avoided pushing any buttons.
Right. Mm-hmm. We're going out of our way, but we want to give you just enough to show that these people are all sexualized, and, you know,
everything's super sexual.
A man signed off on every one of those outfits, and they're all outfits that, you know, none of us would ever want to see any woman that we love or care about wearing in public.
Right.
You know, even just like the random, we're going for a walk and it's not a dance number. It's like, okay, well, why does everybody really dress like that in the Heights? I guess I don't. Does everyone dress like a background dancer in a early aughties music video all the time?
What if we suggest, edit this out if you want, but I mean, if you see photos of people from Cuba, the women are generally less modest. That's just a thing. Like, their standards of modesty are lower than what I would want my daughters to have.
Right.
Or my wife. And maybe it is like that in the Heights, or more like that. Maybe that's part of the culture.
And what was being honestly portrayed? Yeah,
or, I mean, exaggerated, you know.
But everything's in portraying culture, everything's an exaggeration. Everything's a generalization. This is one of the things that really got under my skin when I started looking at reviews or whatever the night of, I got done watching it. I got on the internet, and it's like, plays into old Latino stereotypes. And it's just like, guys, and makes broad generalizations about Latinos. It's like, guys, that's what culture is. That's how do you portray a culture in a positive way without playing some stereotypes and generalizations? Like, that's what it is to portray a culture positively. Like, okay, we're going to celebrate German culture. Let's bust out the lederhosen, right?
I can't believe they said that Latin people have large, loving communities. Oh, man, I bet there's some lonely, depressed Latin people, or Latinx, whatever we're supposed to call them now. Why aren't we representing them?
Why are all these Irish people drinking beer all the time and whiskey in our celebration of Irish culture? I don't know.
Well,
not every Irishman's a drunk. Okay, but
so I've been holding off on just letting this movie have it with both barrels, because I thought it might be a conversation killer or just not a good way to start the podcast. But I hate this movie. I really hate this movie. It makes me angry. I had a pleasant enough time watching it. But thinking about it this morning, and I was talking to my wife a little bit about it, I got so angry, I almost cried. Like, what a piece of garbage this movie is. And I'll tell you the reason. Imagine if you made a Pepsi commercial about slaves and they were just happy working in the fields and doing a dance. And it was like a Pepsi commercial about slaves. And you didn't talk about the chains, and you talked about the masters, and you didn't talk about the pain and the bitterness and the anger. That's what this movie does regarding poverty. I mean, forget about Latin and or Afro cultural appropriation. Lin-Manuel Miranda, this rich, pretty boy.
Who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Yeah, son of a psychologist, and I forget
he grew up in he didn't grow up in the Heights. He grew up in Manhattan.
No, he grew up next to the Heights and obviously romanticized them. And then he makes this thing about like how wonderful it is, and they shoot it like a Pepsi commercial. And I just think you are fetishizing slavery because you're not showing any of the bitterness that comes with poverty.
Why does everybody want to get out of the Heights?
Yeah, we don't know. Why? It looks like Disney World. I want to go to the Heights. The Heights look great.
Right.
Like there's not, they don't set up the narrative thing of Usnavi. Like, why does he want to escape? What's he escaping from? This is great. You have community, you have friends, you have awesome dances, you go swimming in the summer.
And why in the world does he choose to stay? What's he doing? What's the point? What's the mission? Where are the actual pushes and pulls coming from?
They don't even really give us liberal bad guys. There's not an evil cop. We only allude to some racists searching her, and like we talk about it a little bit. Like,
well, they're all off screen in Stanford, but they're not in New York.
You have the whitest guy who lives in the neighborhood who charges too much for laundry.
Right. We could make
so you have the insinuation that what's actually happening is gentrification, and so you have the rich white people moving in and buying up land and property and overcharging and exploiting the poor people, like Abuela when she goes to, try to have something dry cleaned or whatever, and she can't drive, she can't go anywhere else. What is she going to do? But,
it's so toothless though. Like, I would respect it if it had the, what's the word?
But this is Miranda's whole thing. Like, who's the real villain? Who would be the real villain here? It would be a bunch of white Manhattan hipsters who want to...
The very people that buy Broadway tickets. You sell out Miranda.
Right.
I mean, honestly.
Us in this room, except not us, but still, like...
Us if we had money.
Right. Like, it's rich Manhattan people. That's
yeah, but believe me, rich Manhattan people hate themselves. You could make them the bad guys. They'd be okay with it. In fact, they'd applaud you. But Miranda, he wants to go bigger than that. Like, he doesn't even have the courage to create liberal villains. There's not an evil cop. There's not an evil anything. The system's bad, I guess. The system is keeping Usnavi's friend or cousin or whatever he is from, we're persecuting the dreamers by not letting them get their green cards so they can go to college or whatever. But it's all just so I made the mistake of, for whatever reason,
Vanessa's not going to get rent.
Vanessa's not going to
be able to.
Yeah, that's the closest thing we have to a hateable character is Vanessa's realtor or whatever, who immediately starts talking to the other people. Even the guys that catcall Vanessa, we don't spend enough time on them to really feel like she's being insulted. Like, the movie doesn't take a stand like Latino machismo culture is bad. Obviously, it can't take that stand because that's too much of Latino actual culture. But it wants to kind of play with the idea that she doesn't like being catcalled, but it doesn't even want to play with that idea. So what a cowardly...
It's more like it's a charming background to her life or something.
Yeah.
Well, and that, you have the blackout and Vanessa and Usnavi are separated.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this thought of, oh no, what's going to happen to this beautiful woman that all of the Latin men in the club are just like all over her? What's going to happen when the lights go out? But then you realize, nope, nothing's going to happen because
we live in Disneyland
and everything's positive here. Everything's great. We're all just one big happy family. It's like, well, you could have done something with that would have had real consequences for how beta Usnavi was throughout the whole club scene.
No, because then you'd be punishing her for being a SLUT, which we wanted to play with that a little bit there too. But we didn't want to actually say anything about it, or
well, I mean, you're probably going to get to this, but the actual story of immigrants.
Were we helpless or were we powerless? I can't remember. I keep getting it confused in my
we were
mind.
powerless.
Powerless.
Oh, powerless.
Lame.
Helpless.
Worthless. Worthless is a song for the Brave Little Toaster that the cars sing as they're being smashed in the in the assembly line of the waste yard or whatever. Anyway, Ben, you were saying.
I was going to say the actual story of immigrants coming away from poverty to find hope in America. Oh, he's very willing to use that idea in Hamilton. But in this one, it's like a negative. Oh, we had to leave the Dominican Republic to come to this awful place. And now, can we get back? Can we go back home? That's Usnavi's dream, apparently.
Well, okay.
But that's not quite fair, because the whole thing is he realizes how great he has it in America,
because Nina is going to become a lawyer and defend them.
But even so, it's like being in the Heights is like what's good about it is that you live as an oppressed minority who's going to remain poor, and you stand up for yourselves as best you can, and that's what's good about it. And that's not fair to, like, for instance, Cubans who came to America were like, they're happy. Thank you.
Abuela was happy.
Yeah,
she could never really get ahead, though.
It's like both. It's like the movie wants to gesture enough just to cover its butt towards the happiness of Abuela and her immigrant experience, but also say, well,
I saw an interview with Miranda where he articulated this. I think he articulated what you're trying to say, only he articulated it as a positive. He said, the message of this movie, the thing that I wanted to articulate for people is the idea that we can become American, but we don't have to assimilate. Like, no assimilation, that's bad. Assimilation's bad. But still, there's something positive about America. Like, he wanted to...
Well, it doesn't really have the feeling of gratitude. You think I'm overstating it?
Yeah, I feel like you're pushing it too far.
Okay.
It would make sense for an orphan who was brought over to America when he was a child to romanticize the beach that he only has happy memories of with his parents, and think that he's going to try to get back there when he feels displaced and disconnected, and have to go through a period of figuring out, actually, my connections are here and my place is here. And immigrant stories are American stories. Struggles with place and belonging are American stories. My problem with the way that this immigrant story is told is that it should resonate with every American one way or another.
Yes.
And and so I don't want to forgive it for not resonating with me, even though I'm not Latino.
Well, here's why it doesn't, though. It doesn't actually say it. So take West Side Story. There's the wonderful, everybody's favorite number, America. There's the group singing about, let's go back to Puerto Rico. We had it good here. Here the cops just oppress us. Things are bad. And then you have the women singing about, we have air conditioning. It's actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
And they represent both points of view, really powerful. It's a really angry song from both points of view, and it's wonderful because we're just playing with that tension.
The tension, right.
This
and
movie,
we only gesture at the tension.
I don't even think this movie hardly bothers to gesture. It assumes that...
It does when he goes to the lawyer, right? It has its points. Like, you can actually make the case. You can't make the case that they tried to make him land, but when he goes to the lawyer and it's like, look, I want to go back, he's like, you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. Why would you go back to that hole? Here's pictures of it. See the pictures? It's not what you remember it as. It's a hovel.
Yeah, but in a musical story reality where hovels become castles or whatever, like a kind of rags to riches. My dream will become a reality. I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like the movie was setting
here's the
me
thing.
up to feel
Here's the
that
thing.
way.
Every time it wants to make one of these points, it tells instead of shows. It never...
Right. It does not
That's
show.
right.
We're going to have Nina tell the story of the bad thing that happened in college. We're going to have Abuela at the very end, right before she dies. Spoiler for this dumb movie. We're going to have Abuela tell the story of whatever her difficulties were at the very end. We are never going to show or make the audience feel any of the realities of what these people would have to deal with, either positively or negatively. We have nothing to say, and we're hypocrites who are going to pretend like we have something to say.
But closest would be Sunny, like seeing the protester woman saying, "Oh, no work study if you're undocumented," and Sunny sitting on the bench sad, and that's the closest. And
Sunny comes the closest.
And so the movie. That's why I say the movie slants it towards. Actually, we're not very grateful, and we are just an oppressed minority island here. And America does not. We don't represent America. America doesn't represent us. Our stories are kind of separate. We happen to live here. But that's just the flavor.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda wants to be able to play it both ways, and he's very savvy about that.
Right.
But that's just exactly what
he
makes
left
this movie
himself enough outs that he can play it both ways.
Right.
Agreed.
But you're right about the characterization. I just think he created plausible deniability, and let's not pretend like he didn't.
Right. No, he's smarter than that. But
He's smart.
The movie doesn't leave you feeling like America's. You feel like the heights are pretty great because they feel like a Pepsi commercial from the early aughties, as I will keep saying. But
where people really do love each other.
I mean, I really just think if he had even had the moxie to say America sucks, I would respect this movie more. I would disagree with it. I might be angry for different reasons, but I would be respectfully disagreeing with a movie that said, oh, those cops are out to get us and the system is oppressing us and poor Sonny can't, the dreamers can't get their
work study,
their work study thing. That would be something. But to pretend like you have something to say, here's another idea. Just don't say anything. Tell your little La Boheme Romeo and Juliet story with the background of poverty, romanticize the heck out of it like artists have been doing for hundreds of years. That's fine. But if you can just pretend like you're not saying anything, I could get behind that. But if you're going to posit yourself as a socially conscious thing that's entering into the conversation, you better have something to say. And if you don't, you hurt people and you damage things, and that's bad. And it makes me mad.
You've read more reviews of this than I have. I got the idea that we tamed this up for the movie, and that there was more edge to it on Broadway. But I don't know if that's true or not. I did get that idea, though.
I think that they actually, what I read is they bolstered Sonny's story a little bit in the post-Trump world. They wanted the whole idea of dreamers not being able to make it to land, which is important to remember. This musical was originally written before Donald Trump.
I'm going to look this up.
All right, folks, Jake is looking it up, and what have you found?
So it looks like the Broadway musical, or originally off-Broadway musical, it was much more focused on the bad guys invading
gentrification issues.
Washington Heights, so which we only get a little hint of in the film adaptation with just the dry cleaner. But so it seems like the real question is, are they pushing everybody out and they're going to have to go find other places, either move up in the world or find another ghetto to rebuild, or are they going to plant their flag? And so Usnavi decides to plant his flag or something like that. And that's the central conflict of the original show. It's the gentrifiers who are moving in and trying to take things over and scale up prices and raise rents and buy buildings and raise rents and push everybody out. That's what it looks like. And what they wanted to do was tell a story about that felt more updated, and so they added the stuff about Nina in college. They added the dreamer stuff with Sonny, and tried to make it more about, and then just kind of kept the whole other gentrification as another thing and try to make it more complex.
That means our hero's central thing in the movie version is not actually connected to the theme of the movie. All the side characters have their little thematic journeys that give us some nice morals or whatever, but our hero's actual decision
is gutted.
Not much hinges on it, actually.
Yeah. And that explains
why this whole movie sucks and fails to land emotionally.
It explains why it didn't land for us, and why we don't like it.
Well, we might have disagreed with a lot of it, but I submit to you that if the story was told properly, we would have felt all the right things. And what was curious about this movie was how little feeling it got out of me, minus just kind of, oh, that was a cool number or something like that. Like, I did not end up really invested in this story. And I feel like a filmmaker has to work harder than not to make me not invest at least a little bit. But man, I just didn't feel like there was much hinging on anything. Like, oh no, who's going to get the lottery ticket? Doesn't matter that much. Actually, we're all already living in Disney World anyway. And there's not much of a threat in the movie version to Disney World, actually.
Yeah, Vanessa is like a very minor character. in the musical? She just Usnavi's crush.
Benny and Nina.
Nina, that's the main event.
They take center stage.
Yeah.
In a lot of.
Yeah, and they fight. They have drama. They're initiating a relationship. Nina's dad doesn't like Benny.
Nina's mom does.
Yeah, Nina's
better.
mom is actually there. She has a number. Nina's dad has a whole number about all the sacrifices he's made and how hard he's fought and how,
Yeah, but this makes more sense. It just is more streamlined.
The movie's more streamlined?
No, the musical.
Musical sounds like it might be good, actually.
It actually does sound like it might be good.
Yeah, they really gutted it. To take a couple minor swipes at Trumpism.
Yeah, in the musical, Sonny worries that people will come to rob the bodega, and he and Graffiti Pete set off fireworks to distract looters. For instance, another gesture at actual poverty and...
So that's a thing that they just take and make into a, oh no, there's a blackout. We're going to light up the night sky with fireworks so that we can all see. They take the guts out of it.
No, yeah, they really did. They just gutted this thing.
I'm glad that we are finding this stuff out. This is good to know.
It makes me feel better about 20-year-old Lin-Manuel Miranda and worse about 40-year-old Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the way these things work. It just goes through a million hands and a lot of cooks in the kitchen and producers and money people. And
so another thing, I mean, here, even this, the abuela, she, in the musical, she sings Paciencia y Fe right after the big 96,000 number, and she's announcing that she won the lottery.
That makes so much more sense.
Right?
Abuela was such a zero in this movie. Like, you know exactly what they're trying to do with the character, what she's supposed to represent, and it just never connects at all. I mean, Grandmother Willow in Pocahontas got more emotion out of me than Abuela.
Oh.
I don't know that I've seen a worse matriarch in a movie. I mean, she's just such a zero.
She was like a stage prop version of a
Yeah, she is a stage prop. They're just like, here she is, and here's what she represents. And she'll come back at the end to die, and we hope you'll be sad. I mean, not if you don't actually write a character.
Yeah.
There are any number of places in this movie where it felt like they were backfilling the emotion. Like, here's the things that it would have been nice to know about Benny's relationship with What's-Her-Face that they tell us at the end of the movie. And then with Abuela, same thing. Like, here's her journey that it would have been nice to know about.
Yeah.
So that I could have felt some emotion.
Also, I mean, it is just reordered.
Yeah.
Just straight up reordered some of that stuff.
Well, what I feel like reading about this plot in the musical is that it takes away the flavor of ingratitude that I was making a point about.
Yeah, sounds like it. I mean,
that's how it sounds to me. So
sounds like it's just a more down to earth. This is what it would be like in the Heights kind of musical, which means it'll get any number of things right.
So
yeah, in the musical, Nina admits that because she had to work 2 jobs while in school, her grades dropped and she lost her scholarship.
Oh wow, a character with a flaw that they had to overcome? Who needs that?
Man.
That's a little racist against Latin people, actually. They shouldn't have flaws.
Yeah, there's just a lot of... I mean, even stuff like... we talked about the tension between Benny and...
Nina?
And there's another guy named Kevin, who's another love interest of Nina. And Benny's not Hispanic, and...
No, Kevin is Nina's dad.
Oh, sorry. Right. My bad. But the tension there, part of the reason Kevin doesn't like Benny's because he's actually not Hispanic.
He's black.
Because he's black.
Yeah.
And then, so it's like all through the movie, and then there's like the moment when they kiss that finally resolves the tension.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we don't have any of that tension.
We just don't have tension, period. So many times in this movie, I'm just like, well, they're singing and dancing, but I don't really know what's at stake here. I mean, that thought went through my head any number of times. Like,
just pride a lot of the time. Like, why are you guys lying around? We should dance because we're Latin.
Yeah.
It's hot, but we should dance because pride.
Yeah. I can't believe people. Well, I guess I can believe people are giving this one a pass, but it's a bad movie. And it sounds like it gutted everything that was good about what sounds like a pretty good stage play, probably.
I don't know. I mean, it's true that we just want to believe that.
But you're suspicious that...
I want to believe that. That's why I brought it up. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to go listen to the actual Broadway album after we leave here to to figure out more of it for myself.
Well, you'll have to report back to us. Maybe I'll do the same thing. Well, guys, what other thoughts about In the Heights do you want to share?
Well, we had our shot. We didn't throw it away. We took it.
No, we took it. I want to take some more shots. I want to talk about I want to reiterate how much I hate this movie. I don't want to wear the poverty card or anything like that. I didn't grow up in anything all that terrible, but I grew up pretty poor by American standards. My wife grew up much poorer than I did. And I've worked blue collar jobs, and I feel like I know enough about how these kind of communities work to know that there's a lot of angry, bitter, lazy people. That's not to say that everybody is like that, or that there aren't hopeful people or people with dreams, or what do they call their dreams? Sueñitos. It's not to say that there aren't people rising above it. It's not to say that there aren't all kinds of people, but to paint everybody in Washington Heights as just like sexy, thriving Pepsi generation people is just such a lie. I mean, I really think it is akin to making a movie, to making Song of the South, like slavery is fun. Yay. Even though the movie makes some sort of gesture towards we should get out of slavery, I guess, like Usnavi should want to get out. It never tells you or makes you feel why he should want to get out or what he's getting out of or what Jimmy Smits had to sacrifice. Cutting those things out, which it sounds like maybe the stage play had them.
Ramos or Usnavi owns the bodega, though.
Yeah, he's doing all right, I guess.
We're not actually dealing with... I mean, we've got the owner of the Dispatch and his family, who he can apparently send to Stanford.
Right.
Although he has to sell out space here and whatever. You've got the bodega owner.
Well, I was expecting this argument because I think this is the argument that Lin-Manuel Miranda would make if he was here. Mm-hmm. He'd say, why are you acting like this is a movie about poverty, Nathan? It's like, this is a movie about like...
climbers, reachers, dreamers, people who are moving up in the world and making good. And they have, and they're building on what their parents... I'll be Miranda for you.
Right. Well, okay, but apparently Nina has to save us all from something. And apparently Usnavi has to save us all from something by staying. And apparently Jimmy Smits is really sacrificing something by not staying. So you do want to say something about the poverty of your people. And apparently what you want to say, what you've managed to communicate is it's awesome. And that's an incredibly irresponsible and foolish thing for you to communicate, Mr. Manuel Miranda.
Well, but what's his name? Kevin. Kevin's made good on his parents' investment. He's figured things out. He's helping his daughter take the next step. They're going to stand tall. Usnavi is trying to figure out and process these realities for himself. Like, is it good enough to be a bodega guy? Is Kevin selling his business to put his daughter ahead, sacrificing the community or making a sacrifice for the community? Those are the questions we're trying to ask and play with. And, Nina is like, no, you're sacrificing the community. And he's like, no, I'm sacrificing for the community by sacrificing for you, because it's not about maintaining what we have here. It's about taking the next steps, always the next steps, always building, always moving forward.
But the next steps out of what?
It's not
and towards what?
Towards being successful, seen, empowered Latino Americans.
But to watch the movie, you already are. You have an awesome community of successful, seen, empowered Latino Americans
running around singing about how powerless they are.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense. You're sending completely mixed signals. And did you just switch sides there?
No, I'm
powerless. Yeah, like
powerless. You really don't feel.
Well, here's the thing. I did a little reading to shore up my argument about Washington Heights. Guess what? People smoke cigarettes. There's a lot of heroin usage. It doesn't feel like Disney World. Okay, I guess you could tell a story about this random community of up-and-comer dreamers, as Jake's trying to argue on your behalf. But why on earth would you co-opt and appropriate the culture of a bunch of poor, struggling, unhappy people and portray it in such a positive light. You rat.
Hey, hang on. I want to know. Sorry, I keep wanting to do this. I want to know, somebody has gone and interviewed people in Washington Heights.
Mm-hmm.
How have people in Washington Heights?
While you're doing that, I'll argue against myself. Here's the argument against you, Nathan. Actually, the area has been pretty well gentrified. You're being a racist when you say it's that terrible. And you just need to understand that there actually is a vibrant community and that, okay, fair enough, other Nathan, but there's a lot of problems in that area, and he's just ignoring. He's not even gesturing towards them, or if he is, he's doing it in a really irresponsible way. Maybe it was because I just watched Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing for some ridiculous reason, which is a very powerful and very angry and very wrong, I think, movie about these very issues, about a small community of Black people living in New York who all have this community pride. But there's also angry people, and there's also lazy people, and there's also the Italians that are over here. There's so much richness to, I guess it's not fair to compare a little sad gymnastics boy to, Mike Tyson in a fist fight. Like, they're both trying to do different things. But no, that was a wonderful metaphor, wasn't it, folks? But seriously, this movie doesn't begin to ask the right questions. Even if it had different answers than the answers that I would want it to have, it does not begin to ask the same questions. And are you finding some good information over there, Jake?
I am seeing a bunch of quotes about Miranda talking about how his vision for In the Heights couldn't have been any different than Choose.
Well, that's fascinating.
He always imagined it being really small, and
he probably imagined
small, indie, cozy.
Yeah, man, that'd be
nothing that big.
Oh man, if there were just more fans in the window, if people were smoking cigarettes in the background, if some of the people who weren't your stars had warts on their faces, if Abuela looked a little bit more like life had sapped some energy out of her, and she looked like an old Abuela, matriarch of that kind of community might actually look. If the whole movie had just a tad more of the feeling of the Tio scene, just more fans in the background, in the windows, more heat coming off of the sidewalk, more trash, man, it would have gone so far.
John's vision was much bigger than my vision. I always pictured it as this little indie musical. Hopefully we could film it in our neighborhood, because I don't think any other neighborhood looks like Washington Heights. ... But on Crazy Rich Asians, what John learned was that we don't get a lot of opportunities like this, so we have to swing big. He lobbied for a big movie that's still set in this neighborhood.
Yeah,
filming last summer was one of the most joyous experiences of my life. I was just writing songs about my neighborhood that I love to have performed on stage. To see those reinterpreted on the streets was breathtaking, quote unquote. So he's still promoting it while also saying he's trying to promote how big and
but he's also
vision is.
You read between the lines a little bit, and it's not.
You can plausibly read between the lines and see that he's saying this is very different than anything I'd ever imagined or planned or whatever. And I'm bored with it.
Yeah, it's great. Well, listen, I think he probably is, because I think he just feels the burden of representation. Yeah. And so he really thinks okay, that's a pretty good argument, John. We have to make this big budget because Latinos never get to make big budget movies. So,
and this is our chance to really make it big and make it great and make it cool and not have to apologize for anything. And that's great about our world or our culture. How many movies that celebrate white culture, just completely ignore, minimize all the bad side, all the ugly. Why can't we do that? Probably arguments like that, right?
Which is fair, but you need to tell a coherent story with a moral point that makes some kind of sense and connects emotionally. If you're going to do that, you don't get to drop those burdens because you have the burden of representation. And I think that's exactly what they did. They gutted their theme, whether it was ever in the original Broadway show or not. As they worked on this script for the movie, they ended up gutting the thematic sensibility that they had. And they're just left with something that really isn't. It's just not a movie. It's not a story.
They tried to replace it with a different theme, different thematic sensibility,
right?
perhaps.
But they didn't connect it to the main hero's journey of this guy. Plus, the whole. As long as I'm complaining, I'll stop complaining about the big points. Let me complain about some little points. I hate the wraparound. I think it's garbage. I think it saps a lot of tension out of the movie, even though it's a fake out. I think having him cutting back to him talking to cute kids is just always a bummer.
Yeah, and completely invented for the movie.
And I get that they worked backwards and they had a nice, as a red herring. Also, I hate the fact that it cheats in terms of red herring, like the fact that we actually have a nice ocean background behind him. I think that's not playing fair with your audience. There's no way that I could have, because I've seen a movie, I can anticipate that twist. But the fact that they're actually going to show the ocean at the beginning, that's cheating. That's not good movie making. I don't like that. It's not playing fair with your audience. It's akin to actually showing the wrong person commit the murder. Like we're actually going to show Ben commit the murder, and then the twist is
that was all in his head.
That was in his head. Jake committed the murder.
I think we figured out season 3 of The Ville.
I think we've got it.
We haven't talked about other missteps, like just the fact of putting Miranda in the movie at all, or
the second he showed up, which is early in the movie, it whipped me right out and killed whatever emotional threads I was starting to sow.
Yeah, and then to go ahead and make the Hamilton reference on the phone, the elevator music, and even to pick the song that they picked.
I don't think we talked about that on mic. We should talk about that. So the King George number, what's it called? You'll Be Back in Hamilton, is to my mind, a beautifully cynical work of showmanship, because just when the white bourgeois audience has had about enough or doesn't quite know whether to trust the musical,
isn't committed,
they're not committed, you have this really funny,
campy
British invasion, something that every middle-aged white person is just going to love, show up, and it really helps the show earn the trust of lamestream people, and it's great. And I admire it for that. I realize I'm talking cynically about it, but my hat is off to a perfect work of structural showmanship. Awesome. This movie could have really used something like that. Actually, if your goal is representation, if your goal is to draw me as a boring white person into your story, it doesn't hurt to give me another couple handles for it. And so,
although that doing so opens you up to the accusation of pandering in a way that in Hamilton it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, make it the villain song. I mean, that's what Hamilton did, and it was a pretty...
And that's why it worked.
It was a pretty...
And that's what you do. You have the gentrifier have a number, or whatever, the realtor or somebody like that.
That would be great, actually.
Right?
It'd be hilarious.
And just make it and you can totally do like a sort of Ricky Martin, type thing, from the 90s, where it's like, we're going to take all the Latino flair and turn it into, a pop song that is going to be a summer hit for everybody. Like, make it that, and make a joke of that, and have it be the whitest person possible trying to sing a Latino pop song.
Right. And you can get Neil Patrick Harris or the actual whitest people, whoever the whitest person is that can sing, get somebody like that.
Come in and have it be appropriation, and then it's not, then your pandering becomes genius pandering.
Which is what Lin-Manuel Miranda is a genius at anyway.
Genius pandering.
Oh, man. What else is there to say about this movie?
Well, be back.
Yeah.
Like
That's a great song.
That is an awesome song.
Back to the poverty thing you were talking about. You off mic, you were comparing another musical number that perfectly establishes the scene of poverty.
Oh, yeah.
Very funny, in a very funny, sympathetic, and cynical way. It does both things. So you should talk about that.
Well, it's one of the best numbers by one of the great 20th century's great lyrical geniuses and musical geniuses, which is Mencken and Ashman's and Frank Oz. Speaking of white men, Frank Oz's awesome filmed version of Skid Row from one of my favorite little musicals, Little Shop of Horrors. And it's a perfect number for establishing all kinds of things and establishing why these characters want out. I mean, it doesn't establish community. It is just like Skid Row sucks. It's doing something a little differently, but it's a great example of how you can, in a very colorful, vibrant, fun way, set this world up and give some tension to the drama of it. I mean, I think you're right, Jake. The argument against my point is they never wanted to make any kind of point about poverty.
Yeah.
They really did just want to show how great this culture is.
And you can think of it in relative terms, even if you're going to continue to make the case.
Mm-hmm.
What we've done is we've taken the best of the Dominican and Cuba and everywhere else we were in our heritage, and we've rebuilt it here in the land of opportunity. We've created our own little space, and we've made the best of it. And it's a beautiful thing, and we're not going to apologize for it. And we think it's really great and really cool. And yeah, there's downside to everything, but we're not showing you the downside. We're showing you what we love about it. We're showing you what we think back on, what we miss, what we're nostalgic for, what we remember, what we came from, and everything that's great about that. And
my
don't we have a right to do that? Isn't that what everybody does with where they come from?
And I would say, no, you don't. When the downside is as big as the downside that you actually do have in those kinds of communities, it is irresponsible not to show it in some way, not to at least gesture towards it. You know, like Hamilton's a great counterpoint. Hamilton, it's funny to use this word, but there's ways in which Hamilton whitewashes history. You know, they all were against slavery. No, they weren't. But Hamilton at least always is in conversation with history. You can argue whether Hamilton's audience of 9-year-olds is sophisticated enough to pick this up, but the way that Hamilton is meant to work, it's always in conversation with history, and it's always at least gesturing towards history, and it's always playing off of history. This movie, the movie version of In the Heights at least, does not manage to gesture towards the reality of what these people live with.
Yeah, there's no sense of making the best of things, actually.
No, they just have the best of things.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make narrative sense.
Right.
Because we still have to play with the tropes of I just got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're never given a reason why. Why was Abuela's life hard? It looks great. Abuela's life just looks great.
Yeah, if John Chu wants to be the hero of minority communities, he should have picked something different than In the Heights, or he should have collaborated with Miranda on something different.
Well, there's a way to romanticize poverty. I really think that there is. I don't know that it's the best thing to do, but there is a way to do it. But you have to at least say poverty exists before you go about romanticizing it. And this movie, strangely, as much as it wants to prop up ideas of, structural racism and things like that, it doesn't really acknowledge in its visuals, at least, that poverty is even a thing, besides T.O. in his little apartment with the fans, which even there, it's Ricky Martin and
Mark Anthony.
Or Mark Anthony, whatever. Okay, I'm a racist.
That would have been genius casting.
That would have been
Ricky
genius.
Martin. He could have had the song.
Where's J-Lo while we're at it?
I know.
Where is J-Lo while we're at it?
How many times watching the movie did I think, man, it looks so cozy to live in this neighborhood?
Well, once again, West Side Story, great example of everything's fun, everything's vibrant, everything's choreography, but they're always at least gesturing towards the reality of what these people would live with. And it's a different story. I mean, ultimately it ends in tragedy, so they can't help but gesture towards it.
A harsh, ugly world.
The harsh, ugly world. There's a way to say, we're talking about the harsh, ugly world, but we're doing it through song, through dance, through choreography, through beautiful people with beautiful bodies. I don't necessarily have a problem with any of that when it's done responsibly, but I don't think that this movie even enters into that conversation. It doesn't even start to try and do it responsibly. And so that's really bad. The things that this movie teaches kids without even saying them are really bad. I think it is fundamentally I don't even think it's anybody's fault necessarily. Or it's sins of omission, maybe. You could argue like they just weren't thinking. John Cho was just the wrong man for the job. They made a script change here, a script change there, and then eventually they got this thing. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, what this movie signifies is that there is no poverty, that people who are in bondage are not. And I don't know. I mean, I just keep thinking of the job that I worked as a janitor, and it's like, we actually did have this kind of, we weren't Latin culture, right? But we had a community. We had a poverty community. We had our gallows humor. We had our fun together. Like there was a lot of, we're all in this together, sticking it to the man kind of thing. But also there was just a lot of people who were really suffering, who were drinking hardcore, who were bitter, who were angry. Like, where's the anger in this movie? This movie needed more anger to say anything accurate about anything.
I want to actually come back to casting on this point too, because I think that it's another
wonderful point. The one that you're about to make. I think.
It's another piece of the puzzle of just how it all misfires, where your lead character actually has zero anger whatsoever,
and that's so wrong for the movie.
It's like a puppy dog.
And that is as simple as casting. It's as simple as performance, and he doesn't have it in him to have any chip on his shoulder, to have anything underneath the surface except a really cute, charming smile and the ability to get through all of the musical numbers and dance scenes.
And the one thing that we know Miranda can play beautifully from Hamilton, because it's the defining characteristic of the way that he's thought of that character of Hamilton, is a guy with a chip on his shoulder.
Young, scrappy, and hungry, baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where's the scrappy? Where's the hungry? Where's the anger? Where's the chip on the shoulder of... Where's the guy who's actually processing this whole decision, this big weighty decision on any kind of emotional level whatsoever?
Sonny.
Yeah, and it's
That's all you get.
That's all you get.
It's what makes Sonny one of the more compelling characters. In the thing.
He's got edge. He's angry.
Yeah.
He's frustrated with his situation.
Even the dad's anger is it's of little dramatic worth. It lasts for such a short time.
It's relatively impotent.
It's impotent.
And what a waste of what's his
Jimmy
face?
Smits.
Bail Organa. Or not Bail. Is he Bail Organa?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an awesome casting.
Yeah, I love Jimmy Schmitz. I mean, he's great, but I don't know.
But yeah, your lead was a total zero in the emotional in the emotion department. He had nothing to offer you except a really cute smile, and
it all works out in the end.
Well, kids, I did nothing, and it all kind of worked out.
That was my sueñito.
You know, and it's like, all right, so Miranda's going to promote his buddy into this role and try to propel him to stardom, but he didn't have what it took to make it shine and make it work on screen. Maybe in some sense he does on stage in a way that he doesn't on screen, because you don't have to deal with the close-ups.
Mm-hmm. But his simpering smile that we have
that's all we've got.
That's all we've got.
It's just like, and that's why I keep saying really cute smile, because that's basically the one thing that he can give you, and that's all he gives you all movie long is a close-up. Oh, we're going to have a cute smile. Like, that's it. That's all he has to offer. And I mean, he's a very talented person in his own right, but just the wrong guy for that lead role. Like, he was fun in Hamilton. I'm sure he's great in other roles.
You could see him being angry. Like, as you're talking, I'm like trying to imagine him playing an angry, like a bitter young man. I think I could see it.
Maybe he could play it, but they sure don't ask him to do it. They don't stretch him here at all.
Yeah, well, there's just no, like, again, on paper, why does this man want to go back to the Dominican Republic? Well, because he's an orphan whose only happy memories... So he's got these happy memories of his dad's hotel or whatever it was in the Dominican or it was the Dominican, right? The Dominican Republic. They come to America to make good on things and to get away from, and then his parents die. And so now what? So now he's just trying to figure out who he is and where he fits and where he can be happy, because the one thing that America represents is the place where his parents died. Okay, well, make us feel some of that, please.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and make him have to make us feel that he's actually grappling with all of that. And his parents did maybe his parents did the wrong thing, and maybe all this stuff. And then he has to realize, actually, they set me up pretty good, and I'm romanticizing some garbage, and this is the right decision. And all of that could have been there in the script itself,
mm-hmm.
and just communicated with some facial expressions that aren't a simpering smile.
Mm-hmm.
Some edge, some...
Well, nowhere do you want that edge more than in the scene where he's betaing out, and so she starts throwing herself at all these other guys, and they're all singing Vanessa, Vanessa, and she's intentionally trying to provoke him, and it's this really it's what should be a really sexually charged battle of the wills, like what we talked about with Philadelphia Story,
right?
or even Astaire and Rogers.
Peters out.
But man, it just kind of like peters out. But man, like give me some male rage and some impotence and some something. At least play impotence. Like at least play.
Who's going to throw a blow somewhere, right?
Right. Why are these people not scared? And then the thing is, I think you could, I mean, there's always going to be scolds who are mad about everything. This movie proves it because the woke crowd was mad that there wasn't enough Afro-Latino representation.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're doing another culture, you can do stronger male characters. Like, I don't think that people would actually take offense as much at this guy being an alpha as they would at, a white guy. Like, a white guy has to be a beta or we'll be mad at him. But we could play to the stereotype of Latino swagger a little bit more. Maybe not completely, but we could give this guy some swagger. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This is pathetic. Why would Vanessa be interested in this guy?
Yeah, that's pretty unclear the whole time.
Well, they again, at the very end of the movie, they're like, oh, we always liked each other at school. And
I forgot that happened.
But it's because they fill it in at the very end. It's so weird. They do it with Abuela. They do it with that. They do it with Benny and his girlfriend. Like, they wait to give you emotional information that makes things connect emotionally until the end. It's bizarre. It's like they want to go out of their way to make things not connect. Like, you have to work hard to make a script that non-intuitively bad. If I said that correctly. Like, I do not understand.
Yeah, it's bad. Maybe it's because he's a successful small business owner who has some stature in the community. Maybe that would go some ways towards attracting a woman.
I would love that, actually. I mean, I would love it if it was just more cynical. If it was just like, well, Vanessa's not getting out, so she's got to decide what her best ticket to some kind of happy life is. That would be interesting. But of course, they're never going to do anything that interesting. It has to be true love based on something we'll backfill at the very end.
Inexplicable. He's always been there for you. You always get your coffee for free. He went to the nail salon lady and had her co-sign for you.
Which took real sacrifice on his part.
A detail that I somehow missed. Like, I did not know what they were talking about at first when...
Oh, really?
I must have been looking down or taking a note or something. I don't know. I'm sure it was obvious.
It was. He literally goes to the salon lady and is like, here are the papers, and if you co-sign on them, Vanessa can get her apartment that she's been longing for, and since you're leaving, you might as well do this one last good thing for her.
Please do this thing.
All right. By the way,
I mean, that's basically what the scene is.
That is what the scene is. It is very silly.
By the way, I really don't like cougars in movies or in anything. The nail salon lady really.
Her and her partners all felt that was.
It was just gross.
It was really gross.
Maybe we're not allowed to say that, but we tell it like it is here on Sanity at the Movies.
The whole nail salon scene, actually, all of it was gross.
Which is the worst part of the.
Well, there again, if you had an angle on those ladies, like if you were making fun of them, like if you didn't have to just blandly,
like they were also awesome,
blandly say everything's awesome. If you're like, oh, here's the gossipy kind of oversexed nail salon ladies, isn't that kind of funny? Like, you could see an old Hollywood movie having a lot of fun with those character types.
What did they have on the walls that were? These had all these like little details that you see in other movies where suddenly it's like heads on wall, like mannequin heads on walls were singing or
that's right, like
tilting their heads or whatever.
Right. The mannequin heads with wigs.
There again, I think Chow's he's all right. He keeps the energy up. He knows how to cut together a nice little MTV style montage, but he needed to either, I think, go a little bit more magical, just do a few more things like that so we know we're living in that kind of world, or just not do it, because it kind of always feels like it's violating the reality, for me at least. I suppose people's mileage may vary, but I was just kind of like, why are they walking on the side of the building? now? Like, what is this? I thought we were in like a streetwise kind of movie situation. I suppose he threads that needle pretty well. If I liked the movie better, I'd probably be willing to cut it more slack in that department, because he does do a lot to try and thread that needle. I'm glad
he maintains the thread with the animation stuff, and then he does these little flourishes or tributes, and he's got the big dancing sideways scene.
There's the dancing sideways scene. There's the Vanessa is just watching magical rolls of fabric come down.
Yeah.
There's a few other magical realism touches. There's obviously the animation stuff. I could have used either a little bit, like Guy Ritchie is a good example, Ben's favorite filmmaker and favorite person.
Yep. Mentor.
Yeah. Ben's
spiritual development coach.
Yeah. Ben's spiritual development coach, Guy Ritchie, he would just do 5 or 6 more things like that. And so you'd be like, oh, I'm living in Guy Ritchie land. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Chow should have done that, but that's a minor complaint about this piece of garbage. There's another banana peel in that pile of garbage over there.
Someone should have taken care of that.
Let me say some nice things. I really did like most of the performers. I thought they were great. I'd be happy to watch them in other things. Vanessa was good. She was interesting. She was an interesting type. Like, she looked a little different than your standard Hollywood lead. I thought that was nice. I always liked Jimmy Smits. Abuela, I thought, was a swing and a miss, although she's from the Broadway show, and I could imagine how she could be really powerful there, but...
I didn't feel bad about Abuela, not really. The only thing I felt bad about in terms of casting was Anthony Ramos as the lead, but I think he could have played any number of side characters in this very credibly and very well, and really, added to...
By the way, apropos of nothing, did you guys watch the awesome post-credits scene?
Yes, on accident. I had no idea it was there.
Missed it.
Well, it turns out the ice cream truck breaks down, and so Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's in some good business. And then he goes and he gives us a Slurpee or whatever to the ice cream truck guy. So it's
looks like urine.
Yeah.
And he sniffs it suspiciously.
It was cute. I thought it was cute.
That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't know it was there. I just happened to leave it on normally I just flip it off, flip off movies when they're done. But for whatever reason, I got up and was moving around the kitchen or something like that and letting it play. And there it was.
There it was.
In all its glory.
In all its glory. Let's see. I'm looking through my notes. So I'll read you my notes. These are the notes I took.
All right.
While I really hate the wraparound story. That was my first note. Like, the second the wraparound story came on, I just hated it. My second note was, who knew a movie about the Latinx community could be so whitewashed? My third note was, Hamilton reminder sucks. My fourth note was, Abuela fails. My fifth note was, could have used more Tio. My sixth note was, everyone should be uglier. Those are my notes. 96,000 is fun. That was my other note. I was really inspired to take a lot of great notes by this movie.
Donald Trump was in a lyric and got edited out. Did y'all see that?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't have the courage to go against the orange monster that everybody hates.
His explanation made pretty good sense. He was just like, when I wrote the musical, Donald Trump was a rich guy. So in the lyrics, he appears as, I made all this money and now Donald Trump's my caddy. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, now that's like, that's like weirdly politically charged.
Okay,
what does that even mean?
Yeah, no. So, that was worth taking out. Good job.
It just changes it to Tiger Woods as the caddy.
Tiger Woods. Well, now that that's kind of racist against black people if they have to be the caddies. But nice going, Miranda. You virulent racist. Other deep thoughts about In the Heights, gentlemen? Any other blood we can squeeze out of this turkey? Turnip, whatever it is.
Blood out of turkey. I think we already did.
We got all the blood out of the turkey.
I feel let it out. Let's roast that or deep fry. I think is the proper way to.
Yeah, let's deep fry this sucker.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it In the Heights. I don't recommend it for anybody. I hate it. If you just want a catalog of fun dancing. Okay, here's a question, I guess. If someone just wants a movie that is a montage of singing and dancing, like that's the only thing they expect, the only thing they want, will they be satisfied?
No. get on YouTube and get down a music video rat hole. I mean, you'll find more interesting songs, and you maybe not. I mean, for dancing, sure. It's like one Thriller number after Thriller number. Like, Michael Jackson did Thriller, and then everybody's tried to live up to that. Since then, Will Smith's tried to live up to that with his Men in Black and Wild Wild West videos and whatever.
Desperado.
Rough Rider. No, you don't want Nada.
I'm glad that that's becoming a running joke on this podcast.
but in that, it's got some 96,000, maybe Carnival and the Barrio, although that's led by, but it's probably pretty good. And In the Heights, the top number, pretty good.
If you want to get the flavor of the movie with the least amount of flesh, then In the Heights is probably your jam, I guess.
Yeah. It's the opening number, In the Heights, and the most catchy.
Yeah, it's the only one that I could just pull up in my...
And the one I missed most of by coming into the theater late.
You suck.
I do.
It's on HBO Max, man.
I don't keep a subscription to HBO Max, Jake. I'm not a high roll.
Mine is free with my internet service, so...
Yeah, I know. Good deal, too. Yeah. We don't have AT&T. Yeah. We live in the Bayard Park neighborhood. AT&T. No.
One day, Ben.
One day. I have a sueñito.
Bayard Park is like one of the most historically ritzy neighborhoods in all of Evansville, you dork.
Well,
Jake, do not give such context to my remarks.
I'm glad we could end this episode on an entirely racist impression. Don't give such context to my remarks.
Hey, honey!
Hey, Andres.
Oh, best movie. This movie does also violate the Astaire rule, which I know you can't just do it all in one take, Astaire style, but man, you never get to see anybody dance for more than one beat, except for I think that the number on where the camera turns sideways and all that sort of thing, which is nice. But man, they are always MTVing it. It always cuts every time. It's very energetic. It's very propulsive. It's entertaining. But I don't really know that this would be my number one dance movie either, because you don't actually get to see it. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's fun. Whatever. But 96,000. That's the one to watch, probably. Although that's one of the...
Be warned that's the one at the pool. So everybody's in...
Yeah.
Bikinis and swim trunks.
Yeah, and as much as we wanted to have that awkward discussion about how this movie is oddly asexual or desexualized, which is true, you
can do well without seeing all that flesh.
Yeah,
so. No kidding.
Yeah. There's a lot of flesh, and there's a lot of short shorts, and there's a lot of those kinds of things. There's a lot of cleavage, and
a lot of shirtless dudes with abs.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting.
What?
Nothing. I said shirtless dudes with abs, and then my stomach made a...
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Burble?
No abs here.
My ears are burning.
I have one ab.
Yeah. I guess it would be bad if there were shirtless dudes without abs. Okay, well, how many sueños? What do they say? What's dreams called?
Sueñitos.
How many sueñitos out of 7 do you give In the Heights, Benjamin?
2?
2 sueñitos. How about you, Jay? How many I can't say it. How many out of 7?
3.
3? All right, I'm giving it 0. I'll give it 1. I enjoyed some of the dancing. It was pleasant enough to watch. Like, I wasn't actively hating it. I only actively hated it when I gave it a second's thought. But
I came away and I was just like, well, every song reminds me of Hamilton, but not as catchy. So now I have these different Hamilton songs in my head. Oh, instead of Helpless, we get Powerless. Oh, instead of this, we get that. And oh, this was clearly written for that troupe. I might as well have seen that troupe. And oh, none of this lives up and whatever. And then I came away and I was like, well, the choreography was really great and it was really colorful, but also, and that was all the thought I gave to it. Didn't want to come back to it.
Yep. Oh, I will make one more point, which is so boring to have to make this point about every movie, but man, the feminism of this movie, like all the women characters are the ones with any agency, down to our hero's big decision, like his big crisis point and major decision being essentially...
I broke into your bodega and I painted it. Oh,
and I took
forget this life dream that I've had of going back to the Dominican and my plane tickets and everything. It's all out the window.
I had a vision for my life, but
You had a vision for yours too, so naturally.
Let's do yours! Said no man ever. Unless he was a real beta cuck. But why should that be the hero of the movie? Lame. Hate it. Garbage. Stupid. And the dad's like, I sacrificed and stuff, but...
I really want to know what I'm waiting for some actual musical person, like, to just do the actual analysis of how much this movie just is the same.
Is the same.
The songs are just the same.
There's any number of melodic or chord structure fragments that are just, it's not even reminiscent. It just sounds like...
It's just it sounds like Hamilton. And now we're going to, from our big, kind of choral or, into the rap here. And now our Schuyler sister is going to come on and sing an almost identical melody with almost the same styling as she would in Hamilton. And
what is the Schuyler sister? Is it helpless? What is that? No. What is the word in the actual musical? I can't pull it now because I got
the Schuyler Sisters songs.
That is one of them. Helpless. That's why I've been.
Okay, helpless is what they say. Okay, yeah.
The whole time, yeah.
That melodic fragment, I feel like definitely ends up in here.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to have to give a patron shout out to some poor soul on this episode.
We could do a deep dive and actually figure it out if we wanted to. We really could, but we shouldn't.
Yay.
What a waste
I
of
applaud
life.
this decision.
All right. Yes, I applaud the decision as well. Hey guys, let's give a patron choice award of awesomeness to one of our greatest and oldest patrons. Not in that this person is old, but they've been a patron for a long time is what I'm trying to say. One of the OG patrons and a person who I think is living... Well, I don't know, Ben. Tell me what you think about this person as it relates to the American dream.
All right.
Her name is Caitlin.
Caitlin has a sueñito.
Mm-hmm.
And, she goes after it. What can I say? If she owned a bodega, I venture to say she would sell it to get back to the Dominican Republic. And she wouldn't give up that sueñito.
I think you're probably right.
Yep.
Jake, your thoughts on Caitlin, recipient of today's...
I disagree with Ben.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Ben as well.
Success.
She would give up that bodega in a heartbeat. No dega. More like no dega. Well, Caitlin, I hope you enjoy your Patron Choice Award of Awesomeness. We're glad that we could make it happen for you. And good luck with this, Jake. Until next time. Jake he remembers too many memorable things from this movie and the soundtrack. He's like, which thing should I pull? There's so many.
Paciencia y fe.
Oh, boo. Abuela's number was dumb. Man, there's nothing sadder than when something tries to pull on my heartstrings and fails. Like, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Did you guys cry for Abuela?
No.
When she walked into the light?
I got a little emotional, probably.
I mean, I am a sucker. I cried in Wonder Woman 84 when fake Jimmy Smits, what's his name? The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
When he reconciled with his daughter and she said, "You're my real hero," or something. I was like, "Oh," or yeah, his son, whatever. Another memorable movie. I just wanted you to be my dad. I didn't need a hero. I just needed a dad. I'm a sucker. I cried for that crap. But Abuela got no tears from me. All right, until next time, you have to do it again because I kept talking.
Paciencia y fe.
Paciencia y fe. Take that.
Paciencia y fe. Whatever.